Okay, so today we're going to make a brick wall that is going to be like on a street. And I'm going to add a projection layer of dirt and a projection graffiti by Banksy. So I just kind of wanted to show what you can do with projection instead of just painting directly onto the UVs. That way you can scoot it around and scale it and not have to worry about resolution on the fly. So we're going to start out with this brick texture that I got from textures.com. I'm not affiliated with them, but I do use it a lot. So it's just a pretty standard tiled brick. And what we need to do is go through the process that I always go through, and is to create a diffuse, a speck, here, I'll just turn this on. So here's my diffuse, which I just did the same that I've always done before. I just copy that layer and do highlights, or shadows and highlights removal. You can see that in some of my other previous videos if you're curious about how I do that process. Then when I have that, then I did hue saturation, just take it down a little bit so that I can have like some color information in there. There's a little bit of shadow information still in there, but you know, it's not going to be overly egregious. All right, so then I made a speck, which is really just I don't really know how I'm going to use it. It actually has like some, probably needs to be cleaned up further, but really I just wanted to have some breakup. So it's just a desaturated version of the diffuse, and then I just crunched it up with some levels. And then I made a brick grunge layer, and this was just doing a color range on the grout and some of this this brick area. So let's see if I can get a signal. I probably did it on this one. There we go. So I just took that background image, and then it just dumped some color in there. So I just dumped a black and white. You can see I just blurred it a little bit. And what I'm going to use this for is to cut out some of the dirt and cut out some of the graffiti. It's just another signal I'm going to be using. And then for the displacement, what I did was I did 3 different maps. I did a displacement grout, which this one took a little while to do actually, because what I had to do was I basically inverted this brick grunge or something like it. And then I just increased the levels a little bit on this. So for this, you're going to have to do some manual labor. For some maps, you're going to have to do that. I actually went in and just manually painted sections out so that it was just kind of calling out the brick. And I think that took me like probably 20 minutes or so. You obviously want to do a good job. But then after you've done all that, you get something like this. And it's a little bit blurred, but I just wanted to get a signal that's just calling out the brick to the grout. So that I can like push in those bricks a little bit, and, or push in the grout and then bring the bricks out a little bit. And then I also made a brick random height, and I actually need to modify this a little bit. I actually figured this out because the white areas is going to be pushing out, and I actually don't really want that. So let's go HSB slider up here. I want it to be about oops. The inverse of that. I want the background to be like 50% gray. like this. Something like that. That way I can push some out and push some, or so they're like some are pushing in. And honestly, I want some of the bricks to be coming out as well. So the way that it works is white comes out and then black goes in and gray is kind of like right in the middle. So what I'm trying to do is to figure out which bricks that I'm going to push in, which bricks I'll push out. So let's say, let me turn this off first. Let's say we're going to push out these bricks. All right, that looks good. So I'm going to select these bricks. And then we'll do just like a white color. All right. So now the white bricks are going to be coming out from the wall. The darker bricks, the bricks that are darker than 50% gray will go in, just so that we have some variation. And it's not perfect, honestly. You want to go in and clean that up a little bit better than I did, but we'll just see what we get out of that. So I'll just, oops. Let me just add these together or flatten these down. I'm going to blur this a little bit. Just trying to fix some of my terrible edges there. Okay, so we'll just see what we can get out of that. So we got our displacement grout and our height random. And you can kind of see what we're going to do with that. And then displacement fine is just taking this background color. And let's do a desaturate. And then I'll do a high pass. And that just pulls out the high frequency detail. And then I'll just crunch this down a little bit. And I also want to make the brightest points about 50% gray. I guess I probably want to take a little bit out. All right. So let's say that that's pretty good. This is actually what I ended up with. So it's something similar to that. So let's actually write these out, which I had already done before. So, whoops. Brick output, and I save these out as TIFF. And you can see I have the diffuse, the displacement fine, the grout, the grunge, and the spec written out. I'm going to rewrite out this height map actually, because we did a little bit of updates to that. I think that we can get something a little bit better out of that. So let's see. Displacement height. And I'll just version this just to make sure. All right. So I've got this little scene here that is just a, whoops. It's just a wall, a little lamp, some very beautifully modeled boxes, a sidewalk, and a road. And we're only going to worry about this wall first. Actually, I'll pull up my Photoshop file too again, because I actually have another texture in here that I'm going to be using. So I've got this Banksy image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to project this onto the wall and then cut it out with a control signal that I made. There's probably a better way of doing this, like taking this channel and putting it inside the alpha for that. I was having some issues with getting that to project properly before, so I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't do this this alpha stuff too often, so okay. So we'll just see how that goes. All right, so let's get started on just the wall here. So I'll go back to my render cam and let's render what we got. So everything right now just has a normal AI standard surface on it. So what we will do is make a new AI standard surface. So I've made a little brick tab here so I can start making this. So let's make a new AI standard. And I'm going to call this brick. Let's call it bare brick material, because this is going to be the brick without anything on it. So let's get a file in here, go to the brick output, and then we'll do the diffuse first. All right, we got that hooked up. Now let's hook up our spec. So let's see. All right, now let's hook up our displacement. So I'm going to click on the shading group node. So we'll call this bare brick shading group. And then click on this checker box for displacement material. And get this file imported. It'll make my displacement shader bare brick disp shader. Just name everything so that it's clean. Let's see, first one we'll bring in is the grout. Okay. One thing that I want to do is I want to make sure, whoops, let me bring this back over. I'm going to name this the bare brick 2D placement, because I want to use the same placement node for all of my textures so that they can scale together. And instead of deleting these, I'm actually just going to hide them, because these connections here, they're still being driven, so I don't want to just delete them out. Okay, so really we only want to just have UV coordinates being modified. It's U and V coordinate. Okay, so let's see. Let's render this. Let's see what we get. Oh yeah, one thing that we got to do is before I hit render, we need to make sure that the object on the shape node, just delete the history on this, on the shape node, and we will call this brick wall. On the shape node of the brick wall, that, oh, we don't have that attached yet. So I'll click on the wall, right click and hold down, go to assign existing material, bare brick material. Okay, so we have the transform node named, shape node, and the materials hooked up. Awesome. So we go to the shape node, go down to Arnold, subdivisions, and displacement attributes. I've already set this up beforehand, but this would come in like this likely. So what you need to do is you need to set your subdivision to Cat Clark, your iterations. I already know this needs to be about 5, so I already set it. And then my height, we'll do like 0.1 to start, and then turn on auto bump as well. Okay, so let's render this and see what we get. All right, so we have displacement working. One thing you can tell is that the bricks are ginormous, so we need to scale those down. So let's select our brick 2D placement node, and it'll pull up this, and then let's repeat this by, let's try 3. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Whoops. 2 by 4. I'd say that feels about right. I'm not really sure. I don't have any proper scale objects in here, so I don't know for sure, but we'll just go with that. All right, one thing we got to do is you got to remember to set up your AOVs. I have them set up here already, but go into your render settings, go to AOVs, and over here you can see that I've already set up my diffuse albedo, my direct, my indirect, my specular direct and indirect, so that I can render those out separately. So you can just kind of see what these are. One thing, this is like way too shiny. So let me just run this, and I have my bare brick material selected. I'm just going to increase the roughness. Also, I think this is like way too dark. So for my spec color map, and honestly, I'm not sure you should really be modifying the spec color in this way. I just kind of am. It's kind of a cheat. I think physically, you're supposed to leave it alone, but you know it doesn't have to always be physically accurate. You can just kind of drive it however you'd like. But I think you're supposed to drive it mostly by roughness. I could be wrong about that. But you know, we're just kind of making things look cool. It does not have to be physically accurate. But let's try to mess with this a little bit to just bring it up. Seems like, oh, I didn't actually hook it up. Hold on a second. Let's hook that up off screen. Is it not doing anything? Let's see what's going on here. Okay. There we go. Now it's hooked up. At least I think it is. Okay, cool. Just a 1. All right, and I'm just selecting the material again. Grease, it's roughness. Well, it feels like brick. It looks like in the beauty. Ah. That looks fine for now. Okay, so let's add our second displacement map to add a little more variation. So let's go to Hypershade here, and I'll type File, Texture, and I'm just going to hide this one. And let's hook up that UV coordinate. And for this one, we want to do the random height. Let's do the second one. All right, I'm just going to plug it directly in for now, just to see what we get. Go to the lighting. I did not do anything because I don't think the alpha is active. There we go. All right, so you can see like some of the bricks are going in, some of them are going out. It's probably a little intense, but let's do a plus minus average node so we can just average these two these values together. Whoops. Okay, so we have these going together. I think you just take 1. That should work. Okay, cool. We have some going out, some going in. Let's look at the operation. So right now it's at sum. Let's do average. I actually kind of want the intensity to be a little stronger with the in and out brick. So what I'm going to do is take an AI range and I'm going to add it in. Actually, I'm going to change the order on this. Probably does not matter. But I just want to keep it consistent of its hierarchy. All right. I'm going to pause this and just update the full scene, because anytime you're working with displacement, you should do that. Okay. So now I have my AI range selected. Well, let's go to heading just so we can see a little bit easier. All right. So I have the AI range for my height random set. So let's set this to 2, see what that does. that should push everything out twice as much. And if I did -1, it should push everything in twice as much as well. And then it's also still going to do that average of those values, so it won't go that full extreme. But now you can see that some are going in, some are going out. Just adds a little bit more variation, and that is pretty extreme. So let's do like 1.5, bring it back a little bit, and then -0.5. Just letting it average those a little bit smoother, because we don't want it to be like super crazy, but we do want a little bit extra detail in there. Okay, so let's add our displacement fine in now. All right, so we'll add another file texture. I'm going to hide this one. And I'm going to map this bare brick 2D placement like we have with the other ones. Add that into my plus minus average. Let's turn on our lighting debug. And let's just render a small section here. Okay. Oh, we don't have that file put in there yet. That's why it's not doing anything. Okay, so I'm going to input my my displacement fine. Okay, let's see what it looks like now. Just adding a little bit of high frequency detail. Let's add an AI range to that, because I want it to be a little more intense. All right, so we have our disp fine AI range. I'm just gonna, let's do 0.5, see what that does. I'm just taking down the input max value. Let's take the input min up a little bit. Sometimes you just gotta mess with this to see like what each value is doing. 0.4. All right, just adding a little bit of surface detail there. Oh, smooth step, see what that does. Didn't really do what I wanted, so turn that off. I honestly do not know what this is doing. So mathematically, so if somebody can point that out, that would be great. I just kind of go off by look, less concerned about what it's doing. I probably should be more concerned about it though. I think it has something to do with linear space. I'm not sure. So, all right. So we have some extra detail in there. We also have those bricks going in and out, and we have the grout pushing it in. We could actually increase the intensity of the grout. So let me pull this section here. See, I'm gonna this section here, and I'm going to make an AI range. I'm just gonna squash these down. I did not name this. So this is the displacement. Let's see, height random AI range, just so we can keep everything sorted. And so this is our displacement grout. So I'm going to make an AI range for that. And put in the first input. Let's name this disp grout AI range. For consistency, just do that. All right, I'm squash these down. So now I can modify this. Okay, so now that I have this AI range in here, so my output min, output max, if I lower this output min, it should push the grout further in. So let's do -0.3, see what that does. Just pushing the grout back a little bit. Try -0.5. And let's try 1.3. This should just increase the intensity of how far that grout is pushing those bricks in and out. And then it's kind of maintaining the same value structure of the other maps that I have mixing together. It's just kind of like shifting around influence. Which map has more influence? That looks pretty good. Let's. All right, now that we've got that worked out, let's see what the beauty looks like. Not super fantastic, but not bad. So you could obviously do a lot more work here, but I just kind of want to use this as like kind of a process, and then I'm gonna show you how to add some extra detail on it, so we can move on from just working out these bricks exactly. I definitely want some more variation in this brick, maybe some sections that have cement on it or something like that. But for this, we're just going to add some graffiti, and then we're going to add like a dirt pass on it that is just using projection. So let's move on to the graffiti. So the first thing for that, let's just save what we did here. Just increment this. Okay, so all right, let's add another tab. We'll call this spray paint. Okay, so let's make a new AI standard. And we will call this the spray paint material. All right. So I'm going to pull in that Banksy color that I have here. Awesome. And I'm actually going to try something that actually, I don't want to pull it in this way. I want to project this thing. So let's do a file projection. All right, so I've got my 2D place node, which we'll be able to turn off UV wrapping. And then I have my projection and my file. So there are the 2D textures going into the file colors going into the projection, and the 3D or the place 3D texture node is right here. So this is so that we can project it in 3D space and not be using UVs. So, all right, let's map the Banksy graffiti, and we will put that into our base color. All right, so let's add the spray paint directly to that surface. So I'm going to play this. And one thing we need to do is we need to change the projection for this thing. So go and find this place node, or this place 3D texture. We'll call this Banksy 3D place. So my 3D placement node. So you can see that the projection node is pointed in the X axis. We need it to point in the, it was pointed in the Z axis. We want it to be pointed in the X axis, kind of like this direction. All right, so you can see now Banksy is projecting onto this wall infinitely. So what I can do is I'm just selecting on the file over here off screen. So let's call this Banksy color. All right, just so it populates. All right, so this place 2D texture node, I'm going to turn off UV, wrap U, and wrap V. now that it's just cut to this area. Okay. So now what I want to do is actually do an opacity cut. So let's do another texture projection. And this is going to be a little tricky. All right. So I want to hook these placement nodes into the same projection. Okay, so let's pull in. Actually, I think I have it stuck in this alpha, so this is going to be way easier than I thought. All right, so I think I have this alpha already hooked up. Let's make sure. I'm going to pull up my PSD here. I think I had fixed this earlier. Yes. All right, so I've got this alpha now. The way that I did that is I just created a new channel in the channels and then created an alpha. That way, in here, you can just pull this alpha channel. So if we let's just make sure that it's working. Okay, cool. All right, it is working. Just want to make sure. Okay. So now let's take this alpha channel and let's put it into opacity. And I'm hoping that this will work. All right. After many technical difficulties trying to get this opacity to work properly, I can't figure out how to tile this thing whenever I turn off UV wrap. The thing is that whenever I go to my control signal to turn off the wrap, I get this bug, or not bug, but I'm cutting out the alpha here. When I turn off UV wrap, because I only wanted to project once, I'm getting this like 50% gray material in there. So for now, in another video, I'm going to, try to figure out what that is. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have to leave UV wrap on until I can figure out what's going on there. So to show you what I did, let's bring my hypersheet over here. What I did was I took my brick and then I made a spray paint material. I put my Banksy color project node in there. So here's my color map, and then I projected it in, and then I placed it here. My Banksy 3D place node. And the reason this is turning pink right now is because when I made my alpha, whenever I'm for the mix, so I'll just remake that just so you can see how that went down. So I'm gonna delete this. So just to break it down, I have my brick and my spray paint of my Banksy and that projection. Okay, so I just have one projection right now. Now what I want to do is I want to make a new tab with brick spray mix. Okay, and I have my spray paint and my brick material going into a mixer. And what I want to do is I want to do a control that is driving the cutter of this. So if I turn this back on, so you can see now it's just fully spray paint. It's not cutting out that spray paint decal. So what I want to do is I have the texture made already, but I want to make sure that the projections follow each other because there's two of them. So what I can do, I'll make a file projection. So a new projection node. Projection here, my place 2D node, and my file projection. So this file is going to be my control signal that I have here. Okay. So for now, we're just going to leave UV wrap on. So if I put this into, just take the red channel, put it into my mix because it's a single channel scalar value that for mix. I'm going to get this because my projections are not lined up because it created a new one. So what I'll have to do is I need to link the translations, scales, and rotations for my Banksy 3D placement onto my Banksy Alpha 3D place node. So how I do that is I select the Banksy 3D place, and then I control select the Banksy Alpha 3D place. And if I go over my hypershare over here and I go to Window, Connection Editor. Now the connection editor allows you to connect any attribute that is available from one input to an output. So you can really attach whatever you want in different ways, like to drive different functions. Like it doesn't have to be the translate is attached to the translate over here. It could be anything. But for this, what we want to do is we want a direct transfer. So you can see here in the input over here, we have the Banksy 3D place, which is already placed where we want it. So we want to transfer the translation from this side to this side. Does that make sense? Okay, let's reload. For some reason, oh, okay, I need to reload that. Ooh, undo that. Did something. We want to do from to here we go. Okay, so we have from. There we go. So we want to do Banksy 3D place is on the left here, and my Banksy Alpha 3D place is on the right. So the connection there is a little confusing, but you mess it a little bit, you'll start to get it. So I'm going to scroll down to where it says translation value. So I see translate here, and then I'm going to scroll down on this one, and you can also see it's reading here. I don't know why that. Oh my God, let's just redo that. Okay. I select in my outliner here, select Banksy 3D place. Now I'm selecting Banksy Alpha 3D place. Window, connection editor. Okay. There we go. Banksy 3D place is here. Banksy Alpha 3D place is here. Let's scroll down to, and it's from to. So I want to take my translation values from Banksy 3D place and put them onto the other one. So there. So you can see what happened is it linked all the translation values from this and put it on this new one. So now if I do it for rotation, it also linked every rotational value that this will receive. See? And now any translation I do will also translate and go together. So now I also need to do scale. So I'll go to scale and link the scale. So now you can see they're actually right on top of each other. So if I select this one and move it, they are moving together, which is what we want. And if you look in the, so I can just close this and then I will open, I think I closed it, my channel box. Right here is the driver, which is the Banksy 3D place. And if I go to Banksy Alpha 3D place, you can see these are yellow. That means they are being driven by something else, which we connected this one to that one. So now as we move this around, this will track properly. So if I click on my Banksy 3D place here, I start moving this around, they will move together, which is exactly what we want. One thing that we do need to do is we need to invert my control signal so that it's flipped the other way. So let's click on that. Let me pull up my attribute editor. All right, and this is my Banksy control. Let's call it Banksy control. And what I want to do is invert this. So if I have this selected, you can see over here in my channel box, there's an invert section. So invert on. And if we play that, you can see now it's inverted. And now these are tracking together. Oops. Okay. So let me move this. It's a little bit laggy. I'll scale this up and move it down. Let's play it. There we go. So the alpha and the color map are scaling together now. So let's scoot this over a little bit. Move it down. Oh, that's super laggy. Moving that many things around at once while it's live, it does not like. So you can just turn it off and pause. Okay, cool. So one thing we want to do is that specular is crazy. So let's go to the actual spray paint material. I'm gonna click on that, and we need to do a little bit of work. That spray paint material. So let's turn up the roughness. You can see spray paint. What we want to do is we're going to break that up a bit. So let's say that value is good for that. One thing that's happening now, since that we're using that new mixer, it does not have displacement. So what we need to do is we need to take our displacement from our brick and put it into our new shading group. So I went back to my brick tab. All I have to take over there is this bare brick disp shader here. So I'm gonna just click on it, then go back to my brick spray mix. And what I can do, oops, I clicked off of it. Go back to my bricks, or take my bare brick displacement shader, go back to my brick spray mix tab, and then I'll hit add. And it adds that bare brick disp shader with all the stuff attached to it. It just doesn't bring everything else in because we don't need it. So I'm going to take that connection and put it straight into displacement shader. Run that. And now we have displacement with our graffiti as well. So you can see that. Okay, one thing we need to do is we really want to break up that signal because it wouldn't be perfect like that. I mean, maybe when it first happened, even then there would be like spray and all kinds of stuff going on. It's super clean, which, there would be some some breakup here. But let's say that it's been there for a while and we just want to break up that color. So this is a good use for my brick breakup that I did earlier. So let's make a new file texture. And what I want to do, I'll hide this one, this place 2D texture, and I want to use my place 2D over here so they all line up properly. So I just took that bare brick placement node in there and put it in here just so that everything is lined up. And let's open up my attribute editor. Let's see, and then click on that file. And we want to use this brick small grunge that I used earlier. So let's do an AI composite. We'll just try this one. And I'm going to take my out color from my projection, put it into A, and then I'll take my brick small out color and put it into B. And we will just do a luminance conversion just to make things easy. So I don't have to do R channels or whatever. And then do the out value. So let's take a look to see what that did. All right. So right out of the box, you can see it's kind of like cutting into the area. We haven't really specified what operation we want it to do, but it looks like it did one already. So let's look. Okay, right now it's on over. So if we run this, we can see what that's doing. And then let's just look at a couple of these different operations. Max, min. So this one would do that, which is not what we want. Oops. Let me pause that. Unclicked my composite node. Let's do spray paint grunge comp. Let's try minus. Not really what I'm looking for. Multiply. Honestly, the very first one was probably what I was looking for. Okay. Something like that. So one thing I want to do is I want to crunch those values down a little bit. So let's make an AI range. Plug that into here and take my out color and replace it to where it was. And let's just play this. Oops. I just clicked back on my spray paint grunge comp. I guess I couldn't do that. We're going to have to turn this off for me to be able to. Actually, let's just look at the AI range. So it's just going to be by itself. All right, so we'll just crunch this down. All right. Something like that. All right, so you can see what it's doing is it's cutting into that spray paint even more. That's probably pretty crazy. But you can just kind of see what that value is doing. So it's just going in and that brick is kind of like breaking up that edge. And you may want to go in there and add back in some of the spray because it's kind of just evenly breaking it out each brick per brick. So what you could do is you could add a fractal to kind of offset what's going on. So let's do a fractal texture. And let's do another AI composite node. Let's see what that does. So I'll take the spray paint grunge comp and I will put that into this AB node. Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to mix these two together and then have the final of that. Okay. The reason I'm doing it like this is because I want to be able to break up that edge of this composite node. Let's see here. I'm going to click on this, do min over, just looking at different. Okay. Might be best to actually look at it while you're, just trying out these different modes. There we go. This is kind of something I wanted. I wanted some areas to kind of show and then it break out in other areas. So the fractal is just kind of multiplying different areas a little bit different. So it's like adding color back in. If we actually click on the fractal, you can see, let's see. Yeah, in the black areas, it's adding the paint back. In the white areas, it's just maintaining what it was before. So if we clicked on the fractal and we start messing with it, like if we went to color balance, we start bringing the blacks in, it's actually going to start bringing back much more of the paint. So that might be something more about what I was looking for. I just wanted some breakup, but I mean, these lines are super clean. Like these lines here, and that may not be that clean, but let's just say this is the amount of breakup that I'm happy with. Let's look at the diffuse albedo. This is just a fault of my artistic ability, not of the render. All right, so yeah. Okay, that's a specular. All right, so let's say we've got the brick working, we've got the spray paint working. I also want to do a little bit of dirt spray on this wall, or just dirt like on the bottom. So what I did for that is, let me pull up Photoshop here. I made a little grunge map. This is the one that I get off of textures.com, and I kind of repurposed it a little bit and made it a little bit higher, and I'm just converted it to black and white because I wanted to convert it. I wanted to spray along this bottom edge and for it to be high enough so you couldn't see it. So let's open up the hypershade here, and let's say we are happy with what we've got. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. I haven't saved in a while. That's dangerous. Okay. I'll make a new tab. Let's call this, we got to make a mix shader. And we want to, actually, before we make a mix shader, I'll go ahead and finish naming this, but we'll call this dirt brick mix material. And we're not going to use this yet. Going to make, let's see, dirt brick mix. We gotta make another tab, and this is just gonna be the dirt. AI standard. And you don't need to do it this way. You don't need to like do this like shader stacking. Like, this is a personal preference. That's kind of just the way that I work. What you could do is actually do all this in the diffuse and then all in the roughness and spec and things like that, which may, you know, reduce render time, maybe make it a little easier on you. I actually really like to stack and mix shaders that way that I can manipulate them after the fact. I just kind of like it, that workflow. So you can do it however you'd like. So in the games, you can't do it this way, really. I mean, I think you have a little bit of room shader mixing, but you can't shader mix at this level. I mean, you got to do this all in the texture and like mixing like that. I probably just couldn't speak on it because I don't know too much about how their workflow works. But anyway, so let's go back to this dirt here. So let's pick this color. I'm just going to get like just a normal dirt color, and then I'm going to turn up the roughness. Maybe turn down the weight of this a little bit just so it's dusty looking. All right, let's just add that. Add that to this wall. So I'll just assign dirt material. All right, it's just like a really diffuse dirt. Okay, awesome. So now this dirt brick mix, I want to take my final brick spray mix. Whoops. Put it in here, and then I want to take my dirt and put it in here as well. So now when I connect these up, it's good to go. Another thing I need to do is I need to take this bare brick displacement shader again, because this needs to go into the final material. Displacement needs always go into the final material. It doesn't matter what other, because it's only dependent on the shading group for displacement, nothing else. So it doesn't carry over otherwise. So let's add this existing material to the dirt brick mix material, which is the one that we just made. So right now this should be a 50% blend because we don't have anything else going on. All right, so everything's working, displacement's working, all the other things are working. So we just have that 50% blend happening. So if we just look at this, see it's just dirt, and then no dirt. So let's input a map there. So for this dirt, I'm going to another projection so that I can project that signal dirt across the bottom there. So let's see. I've got my my dirt brick mix material here. I'm going to make a new file projection. I'm going to line these up a little bit. I don't know why it brings it in all crazy like that. I like to see the connections properly. It kind of makes it a mess. Okay, so let's get our grunge. We have this one. All right. I'm going to take the R channel, which is, it's just a scalar value because every channel is the same. It's just black and white. Hit play. You can see the projection's messed up. So, but it is working. So let's click on the placement node and we'll call this dirt place. Right, bring this up, scale it, and then rotate it so that it is pointed in the X axis. Another problem with it is that we need to invert that map. So I'm going to select the map, and I just in the channel box, I can just flip it like that really easily. Play. All right, awesome. So now we've got the dirt projecting onto that wall. And what we could do is I can scale this in the Y. Should be on the bottom portion of this is when it starts. There we go. So you can scale it in Y. Probably need to scale this direction as well. Probably bring this down. So the projection starts here. So that bottom part of the map is down here. So you can kind of visualize where it's going to be. All right, let's look at the specular. Okay, so we kind of have three specularities going on. Mixing the dirt and this brick and the spray paint. And you probably want to balance this a little better. But then the albedo looks like that. That's pretty crazy. Probably want to take that down. So what I could do is, there's two ways. I could either take down the actual dirt, its color, you know, maybe the color is not quite what I wanted, to bring it up. Right? Or you could change the opacity. So if you just wanted the opacity to come down, how you would do that is actually in this node here. You would need to make an AI range. And I probably want to do it after this. Yeah, like that. And let me just do a luminance conversion. It just makes it cleaner. So I don't have to take a single channel. I know it's such a small thing, but it's so that like once I'm messing with stuff, I can just leave this luminance alone and just start plugging things into it without having to go back and forth. You know, it's just a quick thing. Okay. So what I can do is once I have this AI range, I can take down the white point, my output max. And what that'll do is start stepping down the opacity of that dirt. So if I did 0.5, this is going to be 50% opacity. And maybe that's down a little bit too much. Actually, I want to make my dirt a little darker. All right. Let me take that opacity up, back up. And this is always going to be like a back and forth. Let's do like 0.8. That's 80% opacity. All right. So now we have all these projections working, and you can go in and modify them separately still. So I want to turn up the roughness a lot more on the spray paint. It's a matte spray paint. All right. We just came up on an hour. So that's probably good for now. All right, so we've got our spray paint and our brick and our dirt all mixing together with a little bit of breakup. And you can go in and, you know, really try to get these elements to sit in properly together. You know, that's going to take some time. But this is just kind of like a tech demo on how these things mix. Or just a way you could do it. There's many ways you can do this. And you could always UV the thing and paint it by hand. I actually did have UVs for this, but I just did the projection. So you can see that, like, this is where the UVs would be. For the projection, I can scoot it around and scale it, and I don't lose resolution. It's like completely dependent on whatever my texture was. Okay, so that is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.